You're listening to That's Infotainment with Morgan and John. I'm Morgan.
And my name is John.
Hey, welcome to the show. It's been a long time, but we're glad you stuck with us.
We're back.
We are back. And what are we talking about today, John? We're talking about...
Well, today is a very special edition of That's Infotainment with Morgan and John. We're going to be talking about Quentin Tarantino's brilliant Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, as well as the 1976 Hal Ashby classic Shampoo,
which we just watched together.
We just watched it just minutes ago.
And that's not something we usually do.
Not usually, no.
I think we did it with Mame.
Yeah, I would like to do it with Mame.
What was it instead? It was something where there was a joke about Mame, or it was something about... We watched something together.
Put the blame on Mame?
No, we watched it at your house.
Oh, no, yeah, we watched Anti-Mame.
Well, we watched Anti-Mame, Isn't that what I said?
We watched the original 1958 version, not the terrible 1974 version with Lucille Ball, which is just called Mame. That's why I was confused.
I see. Okay.
But yeah, we watched Anti-Mame together with Rosalind Russell.
That's right. That was great. I liked that one.
Yeah. It's classic.
Apologies if it peaked there at the beginning. I'm aware of it. I turned it down.
Good.
It's not worth re-recording.
No, we're fine.
We're gonna kill all that great banter.
We'll move on.
Yeah, we'll move on.
Yeah, we'll move on from the disastrous Lucille Ball as Mame discussion.
Well, John, how's life?
I got laid off.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
From the Emmys?
I did, yeah.
Fuck, man. Did they lay off like a bunch of people?
Well, the program that I was working on, which when I was there for most of the time was called the Archive of American Television, but is now called, I think, the Academy Foundation Interviews.
Okay.
They're scaling it back, and I think they're doing kind of less and less interviews each year, and they're going to start focusing on just preserving them. So I guess you can say in a way that the project is sort of over.
That's awful.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel bad for you personally, of course, but also just I feel like that's such an important thing.
Right. It is. Yeah, it is. But I was there for 7 years, actually longer, because I started freelancing for them in 2004. But I don't know. I think kind of as a day-to-day, everyday going in thing, 7 years might kind of be enough.
That's a long time.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm not happy about it, but I'll find something.
When was that?
This was I think I found out like on July 6th.
Oh wow, a little while ago.
So yeah, I've just been hanging out.
Do you have like
in the Nyes?
How's your do you have like savings and stuff, or you?
I did for a while, but
and yeah,
I have to get something.
Couple months ago.
So if anyone's listening has any kind of odd jobs,
you'd be so good in like an archive.
Yeah, I think
that's
so
what
too.
I think.
If anyone needs an archivist,
have you applied anywhere? Where are you applying?
I've basically been sending out resumes to temp agencies and stuff like that. But the things that I can do, it's just kind of weird. Like I've been looking at the Motion Picture Academy Museum.
Yeah,
I think that would be if I can get a job there.
But or like the Paley Center.
Yeah, well, I used to work
I know,
there.
I know.
But the Motion Picture Academy Museum, it was supposed to open, I think, in June, but it keeps getting put off. So
yeah, well, they're still building it.
Yeah.
You can.
It's
you
something
can
of
see,
a white elephant.
You can see why the progress has.
Right.
I mean, you can watch it happen.
Yeah.
Well, man, that's heartbreaking to hear. I'm very sorry to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do? It's part of life.
Yeah. Well, you send me your resume, though. I mean, we should find some. I feel like you can do stuff more than temp shit. Not that nothing's wrong with temp work at all, but I mean, we should be looking for something kind of permanent for you.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking for temp work just as kind of
of course, an immediate
temporary
thing.
measure. Yeah, exactly.
Where do you look for a job anyway? Like
I don't know.
Glassdoor, you do that,
Well, I mean, it just seems like whenever you send out a resume, you just never hear back. I mean, the only time that you hear back is if someone kind of refers you for the job and you get in that way.
Yeah.
So, again, if anyone within the sound of my voice has any recommendations or juice, let me know.
Yeah, I was.
Write us here at the podcast.
I've talked about it on this show a lot. Being unemployed for like 4 or 5 months at a time sometimes. And you apply for these real jobs in between,
right?
Like what I do, and literally nothing.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when I was unemployed like 8 years ago, I remember sending out literally like 200 resumes on my email, and I think I got like 3 responses back.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Often you don't even get a no.
Right. Yeah. No, they just don't bother to respond.
Yeah,
which
totally
is crazy. But
yeah.
But you're starting a new job soon, right?
Yeah, I just finished. I'm having a good run right now, which is kind of strange for me. Finished a new Netflix show as like a writer director, we were like fixing it.
Okay.
We were like fixing a show, so I can't really talk about it. But
right.
Suffice to say that we had.
So it was a big disaster.
I was Team B.
Yeah.
I was Team B.
And so were the shows kind of already produced and you added to them,
yes.
or was it okay?
Yes.
Okay.
And then they were done.
Okay.
And then this new thing I'm doing, I don't know how much I can say about it, but I will say it's Disney Plus, and it's the Jim Henson Company.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Big deal for me, and it's field directing.
Well, that's neat. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
So something sort of in the late night space.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I haven't signed an NDA or anything yet, but I'm imagining that it's probably.
Is it that thing
secret.
They do with I got invited to this thing by Brian Lynch once, which was like a late night kind of. It was sort of adult oriented, hosted by a Muppet, but none of the like classic Muppets that kind of. I mean, I think they're all sold to Disney or what. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, but yeah, Jim Henson Company. Have you spent time at the Charlie Chaplin?
That's where I'll be
studio and
working.
stuff?
Yeah,
that's amazing. Oh my god,
isn't that the best part? So,
That's like,
yeah, I could give a shit less about
you
the show.
belong there.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, my interview was there, and then I had another interview there, and then got hired, and so I've had a couple meetings, and I start on Monday.
Wow.
And yeah, I'll be working there.
That's amazing.
And the first thing I did was I heard that Chaplin's footprints are there, and he did the tramp walk,
right?
Which I guess I had heard the rumor, and I don't know how true it is, that he wanted to do that at Grauman's or something, but it was like too long of a walk,
right?
And so he did it there, or he did it somewhere else, and they moved it there or whatever. But you can see it, and it's kind of funny, but his feet are really small.
That's really neat.
Yeah,
tiny feet, huh?
Tiny feet.
You know, you go to Grauman's Chinese Theater, and I don't want to get off on a rant here, but you look at the older actresses' feet, I swear to God they were using fake shoes because there was like a thing about your shoe size.
Yeah.
If you look at those actresses' feet, they all look like children's feet.
They might be.
Like Natalie Wood has tiny, tiny feet.
Right.
Joan Crawford did not have small feet.
Greta Garbo's feet
her
are
shoes are, what is going on?
You know, the Vista has footprints and stuff too.
Do they?
You know what we should do? This would just be fun to do. Is next time one of us is near the Vista or near Grauman's, let's measure. We're not going to do this, but we should.
Yeah.
You measure all the women's feet in front of the Chinese theater, and then we create an average female shoe size.
Right.
For there. Then you take the Vista.
Right, which presumably are real. Yeah.
Is the thought. And then you do the Hollywood area at Walt Disney World.
Right.
Yeah, and then we see.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I think the way they would do it was they wouldn't actually step in the cement. They would do they would have the ceremony. They would do their hands, and then they would take their actual shoe. And
so they would bring
in.
smaller shoes.
So I think so.
You know what Mel Brooks did? His is great.
I don't remember.
It happened
what
recently.
He, do, yeah.
He put his hands in and added a sixth finger.
That's cute.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. You just don't think of things like that.
No. And Groucho's cigar is there.
Oh, that's cool.
He imprinted his cigar.
His cigar. That's
yeah.
great. You smoked it afterwards?
I don't know. It was probably too wet.
Are we sure
it
was his cigar?
Well, it was. Well, I don't know. I haven't seen Milton Berle's.
Hey, this is a family show. Yeah. Well, all right. Cool. Yeah. So we were supposed to record a while ago. I can't remember what movies we were gonna do.
Oh God, yeah, I don't remember.
And you got sick.
Yeah.
You got it sort of fever, and then I got inundated with work.
Yeah.
And then Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came out, and I don't know about you, but I saw it and I immediately thought of you.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking of you the whole time.
Same here. You left the theater and was just like, oh, I got to talk to John about it. So I was very glad you emailed.
Yeah.
And that we're doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, that was that movie was a long time coming. I've heard him talk about it, the kind of germination of the idea years and years ago, and I always thought how cool it would be. And,
right.
And then here it was.
And I remember all the stuff about Tate's family and him and in the press,
right?
And when it was announced, and all the jokes about, exterior Sharon Tate's house, night Sharon Tate, the N-word, which is what the big criticism of him. It's like, oh, he's doing a Star Trek movie, and it's like Picard, exterior,
Is he doing the Star Trek movie? Is that
the rumors he wrote one. He said it's finished.
Huh.
I don't know if but he says he's only doing one more movie. But I don't think. But that's as a director.
Yeah.
So I could see him writing or acting or doing whatever.
But I wonder if even he did direct it, if he would not consider that sort of part of his official oeuvre, because it's kind of writing a continuing story of an existing franchise.
It's possible.
Maybe he would consider that kind of not counting as part of the 10.
Sure, that's fair.
But I mean, I hope that isn't true. I mean, I think he's sort of at the height of his creative powers at the moment.
It's kind of what it seems like. This would have been a great movie to be his last.
It would have been great.
I felt like I was kind of blown away by it.
Yeah.
Well,
so should we go into that?
I don't know. Are we done with the banter?
I don't know. There must be more banter.
I feel like we bantered for like 3 minutes.
There must be more banter.
Yeah, I know.
We haven't seen each other for ages.
A while, yeah. You're up in Van Nuys.
Yeah, and you're dating the granddaughter of Peter Marshall, the host of Hollywood Squares.
She also has a lot of things that she's great at as well.
The thing I care about.
I know, yeah.
No, to be fair, I mean, I haven't met her. I'm sure if I did,
you'd love her.
That thing would go right out of my head because she would overwhelm me with whatever else she does.
I'm so in love. It's insane. And it has literally nothing to do with her grandfather.
Right. That doesn't factor into it.
Not at all. So.
But when I was a little kid, I mean, I watched Hollywood Squares like every day. Like when I was 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old.
Sure.
Like, I remember I was upset like when school started because then that meant I couldn't watch Hollywood Squares.
Was that on during the day?
Yeah, there was a daytime version and a nighttime version.
Both hosted by Peter Marshall?
Both hosted by Peter Marshall. One was syndicated and one was on NBC, I believe.
Okay, got it. So there's like the primetime version and the daytime game show version.
And then later on...
What was the difference in guests? I imagine daytime you wouldn't get as many people.
Well, what they would do would be they would tape... the nighttime version I think was once a week.
Okay.
And it was on at 7:30. It was like... when they started primetime at 7:30.
Yeah.
And they would tape 6 episodes, so you'd have the syndicated version, which would be 5 episodes, and then they would use those same people, but switch out one, like with a more famous person, like kind of more of a primetime-y type person.
Okay, yeah.
And that's how that worked.
Okay, got it.
But I actually sent you a link to one the other day.
Yeah, Savannah and I watched it.
Yeah, with Mel Brooks. It wasn't a very good episode, as it turned out.
It was just funny that it starts it off, and he's like, all right, go after the coat. He's wearing this like horrible 70s coat, and he opens up the show and then turns to the panel and he goes, all right, now you can all make fun of the coat. Right. It's great.
Well, I had the pleasure of working on Hollywood Squares, but the revival.
Okay.
In 1999. Okay. And it was the version that Whoopi Goldberg...
And Henry Winkler was he the head writer or showrunner? What was he doing?
Well, when it first started, it was Whoopi Goldberg and John Moffat and Pat Lee were the producers.
Okay.
And then 4 years into it, Whoopi left, and she took the producers with her. And King World hired Henry Winkler to do it, and they kept him on for 2 more years.
Okay.
And he was the producer. Yeah, he was the showrunner.
Isn't that interesting to imagine? Because now he's sort of had this revival where he is... doing Barry, and I think he finally got a well-deserved Emmy.
He got an Emmy, it was amazing.
And, it's just interesting that there was this other period in his career when he was, like, producing and running stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially, like, a nighttime talk show, or a nighttime game show, it seems like a strange kind of career trajectory, but he did it, really well.
Of course.
And I remember he would tell the story about his interview with King World when he went to talk to them about doing it, and he goes, and I walked in, and I sat down, and they said, "Why you?" And I replied, "Why not me?" And I was hired. So I can't
believe you even had to fucking interview.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
But he had a co-producer, Michael Levitt, I think, who was kind of, I think, more of the nuts and bolts kind of guy. But it got much better, I think, when Henry Winkler took over, because he understood kind of the historical importance and embraced kind of the campiness of it, whereas Moffat, Lee, and Goldberg wanted it to be like modern comedy, which, I mean, that's impossible with Hollywood Squares.
It's quips, it's one-liners, it's jokey. So when Henry Winkler, Match Game's pretty like that,
right? Exactly. When Henry Winkler took over, he embraced kind of that older sensibility, which led to them doing Old Game Show Week.
Okay.
Which, one of the thrills of my life. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with the original Match Game, but it was Charles Nelson Riley and Brett Summers were like the big attractions. He was this big queen, and she was like this crusty, pill popping lady. So they actually had those two share a square.
Okay.
So I got to meet them,
which
was amazing.
Yeah.
And then backstage, I'm like sitting backstage watching the show, and this person sits down next to me, and I turn, and it's Marsha Wallace from Mrs. Krabappel, and I'm like, "What are you doing here?" Like, because I knew she wasn't on the show that week or whatever. And she goes, "Oh, Brett, I just came to support my best friend, Brett Summers." And I'm like, "Oh, she's your best friend?" And she goes, "Yeah." Even though she goes, "Yeah, she's my best friend, even though she burned down my house."
What the fuck?
And I go, "Burned it down?" And she goes, "To the ground."
Oh man, rest in peace.
Yeah. So yes. But the interesting thing about Game Show Week was that they had Peter Marshall as the center square for that week, which is really cool because he had never come back to any of the subsequent versions, because they did it in 1986 with John Davidson.
Yeah.
And I think Joan Rivers was the center square for that, and then so he came and did the center square for a week, except the Wednesday episode, they pulled him out of the center square and put Tom Bergeron in there, and he hosted it for the first time in, 20 years, which was a lot of fun.
And so Tom Bergeron hosted Hollywood Squares then?
Tom Bergeron was the host of the 1999 to 2003 edition. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Wait, did we leave in the part about Peter Marshall hosting for one day? Is that in there?
That's okay. Cool. Oh, so everybody, we cut.
Sorry about that.
The mic dropped.
Yeah. So when Henry Winkler came on board, they were trying to come up with promos as to what they might do, and kind of unbeknownst to the creative staff, he kind of was trying to get away, from the Fonzie image. So me and my friend Swampy went in to pitch a couple of ideas. And for his first couple of weeks, he was going to have Ellen DeGeneres as the center square. And so Swampy's idea was that he's in the promo. You see him walking down the hall of CBS Television City with Ellen DeGeneres, talking about the production, what they were doing that day. And she goes, "Oh, yeah, and I do have something important I want to bring up with you." And he goes, "Oh, yeah, step into my office." And they walk into the men's room. Because his office was, and so he stares at us for a second, and he's like, "That's very good. You're very funny. You're very talented. You're very good. I'm not going to do it, but it's very funny." And then the other thing was, we were going to have Ellen DeGeneres in the center square, and the game's going on, and then all of a sudden there's like an electric outage, boo, everything goes down, and Henry Winkler goes, "Yeah, exactly. Don't worry, I'll take care of it." And he goes into Ellen Square and he hits the side of it, and it all comes back.
That's
up.
great. Yeah.
He's like, "That's very funny. You're very good. I love it. It's very funny. I'm not going to do it, but it's very funny."
That's a great way to turn down a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what else. I redid my apartment.
Oh yeah, it looks great.
Thank you.
And you've become something of an audiophile.
Yeah, I really haven't been watching any movies or anything because I got a hi-fi, and I've been just kind of sitting in the middle of my couch and just listening to music.
Yeah, you had me test it out. It's really awesome. Did it take you a while to find the right speakers? Did you test some out? Or?
Yeah, I tested stuff out. My friend Tim is really into it. Him and I just wrapped on a documentary sort of about record collecting and people who have sound systems and things like that.
Uh-huh.
So we were just driving around California looking for this rare record and talking to people along the way about obscure, weird records. Like, there's this record from Japan called Get on the Wave, which is the soundtrack to your new breezy lifestyle, right. And it was released by Sanyo, and it came with an air conditioner, right? So it's from 1986.
That's amazing,
and it's good. Like, it's pretty good. Uh-huh. And then there's another one. Our doc is about this record called Plantasia, which is electronic music for your plants to grow to. Uh-huh. And you could only get one if you bought a mattress from Simmons at a Sears in Southern California in 1976.
Amazing.
And now it's this cult record, and so some of the prices on these things are like $200, $300 or whatever, because they're fairly hard to find, right. At least out in the wild. You can find them in record stores and stuff. People have collected them, but coming by them is sort of rare. There's this other guy named Valentine Wallace, and he released all this crazy stuff like through Xerox. So just weird promotional, strange stuff. I don't know if you saw the Steve Young documentary, Bathtubs Over Broadway.
I did not.
It's really cool. You know who he is? The Letterman writer. He's a
I've heard
famous
of him. Yeah.
Letterman writer. The doc's great. It's not like ours at all. Ours is very low budget, and we don't have an interesting person as the lead of it. But so
wait, your doc is about obscure records, or is it about hi-fi systems?
It's about finding obscure records.
Okay.
It's about it's mini a thing.
Okay.
Because it obviously brought us to people who have a lot of records, and those people tend to be folks who have like $300,000 sound systems.
Right.
And if you thought mine sounded good, it's really another thing to like sit down and hear like John Coltrane come through $300,000 speakers.
It's like he's there.
It literally is a very emotional experience.
Wow.
And so part of it was that. But there's two sides of the same coin, which is like you can be very into records and not give a shit at all about hi-fi bullshit audio stuff. And so we tried to cover the gamut. But yeah, it brought us to like these incredible places. We went to the John Coltrane Church in San Francisco, which is a Black Orthodox, I think it's Episcopalian. I'll have to check. But they made John Coltrane into a saint, and they do all their services with a tenor sax.
Wow.
And I was like,
that's amazing.
I think I could become religious,
So they do like sermons based on his music,
and his like liner notes are really religious, they're very religious, and his story is really this like a great sainthood story. He was totally addicted to heroin, quit it, like they call him the Saint of Sound. Because he ascended to another plane of existence basically through the use of his tenor saxophone. So,
my college roommate was a big fan, but I never bothered to learn about him. So.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why do you hate Herb Alpert?
Well, so part of the doc was we were doing these challenges, and there were a few different ones where we asked people to, if they had donated money to our Kickstarter, they were able to give us a challenge. And one of the challenges came from Tim's very good friend, Teo Yang. And it was basically to drive around listening to Spanish Flea by Herb Alpert and the Tijuana bass or brass.
That's the one that goes dun 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 dun. It's the dating game theme.
Yes.
Jim Lang and the dating game.
Yep.
Jim Lang and the dating
for 2 hours straight.
Without
a break,
dude, no.
Yeah, man, because 2 hours is a long fucking time.
Yeah.
I think I've said this on the show before, but
it is to listen to that song.
Anytime,
it's like holding your hand over a stove.
It's almost the fucking whole run of Lincoln. I always measure time based on movies. And so when I drive around and I'm like 2.5 hours out of Arizona or something, I'm like, I'm a Lincoln away. And then if it's 90 minutes, it's like, that's a Men in Black. Wow. You know, that's a tight 90, right? And so when we had to listen to Spanish Flea, 30 minutes went by and I was like, just a Men in Black away.
Yeah.
It's a fucking horrible song.
I mean, I don't know if it's a horrible song. Like, it's not my
bad.
music.
It's bad. Trust me. Have you listened to it for 2 hours before?
Never. No.
There are a lot of songs that I think
you could listen to for 2 hours.
Of course.
But do you know who owned that studio? That was the Chaplin studio, which is now the Muppet studio.
Yes. Fuck. Oh, it's gonna come to me because I was just reading about it.
Well, it was A&M Records that was owned by Herb Alpert.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was thinking. You know what I'm thinking of is Coppola bought. He made Zoetrope Studios, which was
okay. That's in San Francisco, right?
No, that's your Sunset. Okay. Sunset Las Palmas, I think. He bought, and that was which is in The Player.
Okay.
That Altman movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it was the A&M Records for a long time, from like probably the mid 60s to, I think, even when I moved here, it was still A&M Records.
Cool.
And if you watch the documentary on the making of We Are the World, that's where they all arrive. You see them coming through like the Chaplin gates.
Is that where they did
That's where Quincy Jones said, "Check your egos at the door."
Yeah.
And
no one did.
No one did.
No one listened to
Especially
him.
Michael Jackson.
Prince is really funny in it, and Bob Dylan is really funny because Bob Dylan never learned the words, and then
We are the world.
Yeah, but then then Prince, he's like sucking on a lollipop the whole time, like not doing anything. It's very funny. Yeah, check your ego at the door.
But yeah, anyway, Herb Alpert, I think, got like a lot of his money and notoriety from, being a record producer and owning A&M Records. And
I mean, he's still alive.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
he's
that.
out there.
I hope he doesn't hear this.
You know who else? Everybody keeps telling me to watch the Motown doc on HBO. Everybody's saying it's great. And Smokey Robinson's still alive.
Wow, yeah.
And he looks great.
Huh.
It's crazy. What a career. Like, Jesus Christ, some of these people, there are still legends around. This is why we need the Emmys thing. I mean, I know amazing, it's a different business, but Christ, we need things like that.
Yeah, I agree.
You can't have every, like, Smokey Robinson thing be some fucking BuzzFeed, Smokey Robinson's top 10 favorite, ice cream joints in Philadelphia. And you're like, oh, okay, great. Maybe I wish somebody had asked him about the business. Whatever. I don't care.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
Should we take a little break and then go into Once Upon a Time, or should we just go into it? Should we not break?
Let's just go into it.
We just headlong into this thing.
I think that's fine.
Well, I loved it.
I liked it a lot, too.
Yeah. Okay, what didn't you like? What bothered you?
Like nothing. I liked it. I did. I really did. I actually really was a big fan of it. And I need to go see it again.
Well,
but I will say that I've been receptive to the criticism about it in terms of Tarantino's perceived politics through, or whatever he seems to be sort of condemning or advocating in the film. And I think I think there's a lot to say about just viscerally enjoying something and who gives a shit. But I will say I have a terrible time, I think, not being swayed by critics and criticism and friends and family when it comes to talking about art. I can come out of something and go, I love it, and then have a few hour and a half long conversation. I don't hate it at all. But I will say, when you ask me like what I don't like about it, I think there's some credibility to the fact that like it seems to be that it's a bit of a movie, and you brought this up in your email where he's sort of condemning the hippie movement a little bit. But he's also mixing Manson up with like the rest of the hippies. But Manson's movement was a white supremacist movement, like that was his whole thing. trying to incite a race war.
I think that,
and they made it all about like TV stars and like consumerism and let's take down the capitalist bourgeois pigs. And it was like, no, it was more to incite a war between whites and blacks.
Well, like, that's not really true. I mean, it's hard to like get into the whole like helter-skelter thing.
Yeah.
That was something that Bugliosi hitched his wagon to make it kind of more understandable for the jury. What was really going on there was that Manson was burned by Terry Melcher, who is the son of Doris Day, who is a big record producer.
Yeah, and best friends with like Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys.
That's right.
Yeah, right.
And so he
Manson's
apparently
music sucks too.
Oh yeah, terrible.
The Karina Longworth episodes about just his music, and then when she sorry to interrupt, but when she compares and contrasts them to Moody Blues songs, and you just hear him stealing Moody Blues riffs.
Right, that's right.
Right.
Anyway, so partially him sending the clan or his family to Terry Melcher's old house was sort of sending a signal to Terry Melcher. But the thing it really was that Bobby Beausoleil had committed a murder. He murdered Gary Hinman.
Yeah.
And what Manson was trying to do was do a copycat crime while Beausoleil was imprisoned so that the authorities would think that someone had struck again, and that whoever did that first thing had done the second thing while Bobby Beausoleil was in jail. So it was a method to get Bobby Beausoleil released. Though Manson did talk about those things, I don't think it was kind of a main thrust. It wasn't something, it wasn't his main motivation for Helter Skelter.
So here's a question though. So are you watching Mindhunter?
I haven't watched it yet.
So season 2 of Mindhunter is about that theory and attempting
it's not a theory, it's what happened, but go ahead.
I don't. Well, that's not what Tex says, and that's not what any of the family is really.
If you look at what Tex has been saying for the last 20 years, that's what he says.
Really?
Yeah, and that's what Susan Atkins said too.
That they were trying to get him out of prison by making it seem like a copycat killing,
right?
And then he just happened to be preaching this Helter Skelter philosophy.
It was something that he said, like, during his ramblings, that someone told Bugliosi about, one of the family members told Bugliosi about, and he was like, that's something we can use to hook the jury to get them to blame Manson, even though he wasn't there.
Right.
Which, whatever, they did it, they deserve to be in prison,
Sure. Yeah.
But, I mean, I would say in terms of the politics, it's not that Tarantino is lamenting, it's not that he's lamenting this kind of rigid studio system and this kind of if you want to call it conservative way of doing things. It's just that he's documenting that this is what it was, and these are the good things that came out of it, and these are the bad things that came out of it. And I think, like, it's interesting at the end. I think the hippies do sort of win because, DiCaprio does wear the long hair and he does go method.
Sure.
And
he follows the Hopper, like, that
right,
whole thing.
That's exactly right.
Right.
And you see Sharon Tate with bare feet, like the Manson girls, kind of saying that, hey, she's a hippie too. And he's kind of, at the end,
like, she might like Paul Revere in the Raiders, but
that's
she's,
right.
She's kind of a hippie too.
Right, exactly. But I think that, subtly he was saying, this is what this character is saying, but this isn't necessarily, my point of view or the movie.
Well, that's why I've always defended him for any of his characters, really, is like, I feel like he's a really smart guy. I mean, I love it. I will say, like, at the end of that movie, I was like crying my fucking eyes out.
Right, me too. Oh my God.
And I didn't really know anybody else who was very, like, sad, but
I had so many tears coming.
Yeah. I felt by, like, not showing it made it so much sadder and so much more respectful and poignant because it's like, look at what the world could be.
Right. That's right. Exactly.
And it's the same thing as he did in in Inglourious Bastards, right? Like, which I just watched the other day. And that movie also starts with Once Upon a Time, ...
Right.
in Nazi-occupied Germany.
It's
divided into chapters in the same way. I mean, it's, so much part of everything he's always been doing.
I was actually surprised that people were surprised by the ending. I expected that.
I did not.
I totally expected that that's how it would end.
Yeah.
Or some form of that. Not
I'm
necessarily the way it went
glad I
down.
didn't, because when it didn't, I was so stoked.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
I was so excited. As soon as he stumbled out of that house with that pitcher of margaritas, though.
Right.
It's a quick tangent. So I saw that movie, immediately went to El Coyote with a bunch of people.
I did too. I went a couple nights later.
Packed there.
Right.
It's a great advertisement. Packed there because now Tarantino designed a margarita for them, and so they've got it on the sign out front that they're home of the Tarantino margarita. And then
awesome.
And then 2 nights in a row, I had separate people say, "Can we come over and listen to the sound system and make blended ice margaritas?"
Right.
And frozen margaritas, I guess is probably the way to say it. And I was like, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
And my friend Graham came over with all this shit, and he was like, 4 people were behind me in line buying limes, ice, and margarita mix. I think he started a margarita revolution this summer.
Well, I was here when Pulp Fiction came out, and you couldn't go to a house party or any kind of party for the next 5 years where someone didn't put on the Pulp Fiction soundtrack.
Yeah.
I mean, it was ubiquitous. It was everywhere. And it had this effect on certainly the culture of LA. And
sure.
I, as you're saying, I feel that there's a similar thing happening.
Yeah. I can't remember who tweeted it, but just somebody said, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the perfect depiction of a fantasy where you can drive around LA without traffic.
Right. Yeah. It's great. It's and I mean, and scenes like
it was an alternate universe where you
alternate universe because I don't know that it was ever like that.
No, I don't think so.
But I loved that. I heard people complaining about the scene where Brad Pitt is driving and you see him drive all the way from the hills. Yeah, to the Van Nuys movie theater.
That's great. Yeah,
it's so great.
Yeah, no, I was a big fan. To me, it was just the type of movie you never wanted to end. I could have just sat in there. It was a
cool universe to hang out in.
Would love to hang out in that. Just forever. Just what a breezy, fun romp with so much, fucked up weird tension throughout. The Bruce Dern stuff was great.
Yeah, the scenes at Spawn Ranch, he is not a fan of Hitchcock, Tarantino, but I thought they were Hitchcockian, the rising tension.
I didn't know he wasn't a fan of Hitchcock.
He doesn't like Hitchcock at all. He said some outrageous things.
Really?
He likes the Gus Van Sant version of Psycho better than
I've heard that,
yeah. And he likes Psycho 2 better than Psycho 1.
That's pretty insane. Well, he's a little schlock.
Right, yeah. He probably likes Herschel Gordon Lewis 10,000 Maniacs better, or Bucket of Blood or whatever.
Did you read the Orson Welles the Karp book about Orson Welles about his last movie that they turned into?
I haven't. No.
Apparently, I think Bogdanovich says this when Orson was living at his house in the 80s or late 70s or whatever. Anytime this movie Ice Station Zebra would come on, it was it was Orson Welles' favorite movie.
That's awesome.
He'd get everybody to be like, Ice Station Zebra's on, Great.
Peter, Sybil.
Yeah.
Come.
Yeah.
Are we okay there?
Let's find out. Yep.
Okay.
So Tarantino also was a really big advocate of Woody Allen's movie Anything Else, starring Jason Biggs and Christina Ricci.
Oh, he likes that one?
I like that one a lot,
That's
actually.
Funny.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
It's great.
But can we talk about Bruce Dern? I thought he was brilliant.
He was great.
Because, originally Burt Reynolds was going to play that character.
I do remember that, yeah.
Which I can see.
Sure.
But there's no way he would have been nearly as good as Bruce Dern.
Dern's just believable whatever you have him fucking playing.
He is so
anytime
great.
He's in anything, you're
so great.
You forget that it's Bruce Dern within a second of seeing him.
Yeah, really an underrated actor, I think. Because you don't hear him he's not brought up in the same breath as the De Niro's and stuff, but I mean, I really think I'm sorry that Burt Reynolds had to go, but if it had to happen, I'm glad it happened before he filmed.
Before Bruce Dern died. Yeah. Another just a great shout out of you guys wanting to listen to something else is Bruce Dern's episode of Gilbert Gottfried's podcast.
Oh, yeah.
On another level insane. So good. Really doesn't hold much back.
Yeah, he tells that story about whatever happened to Baby Jane and Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte. Yeah. And Joan Crawford shows up, and Olivia de Havilland, who is replacing her, is sitting there. She's like, "Why, Livy, what are you doing here?" And Betty Davis goes, "She's taking your role, cunt."
Jesus Christ. Yeah, there's a lot of good stories in that episode.
Yeah, Bruce Dern has lived an amazing fucking life.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah. In terms of like, God, a scene that just really moved me also was the Rolling Stones' "Out of Time" is playing, and there's that montage of all of the neon being turned on in LA.
Oh, it's great.
And them getting ready to go to El Coyote.
Did you see it in a specific theater or anything?
I saw it at the Dome. Yeah.
I saw it at the Dome too. When the Dome lights came on, did everybody clap?
Of course.
I wish I had seen it at the Bruin though. That's sort of where I wish I was.
Right, that was pretty awesome. Who could have thought
that'd be the fucking theater?
Right.
Shout out, yeah.
Yeah, there were a bunch of good places to see it. I think like the Bruin and the Dome, and I think also like the Vista.
The Vista, I think the lights come on.
Yeah. That's so great.
I love it so much.
I remember the biggest moment like that I can remember is the movie Speed.
Yeah.
I was in, Grauman's Chinese Theater watching it, and no one knew this was coming up, but at the very end, the climax is in the newly built subway, and it's not finished, so it jets up right through the street, right in front of Grauman's Chinese Theater.
Oh, really?
Lands right in front of it.
Kind of like the end of Blazing Saddles.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That would be a perfect movie to see there.
Right.
Movies that take place in the theater, in the places you're watching them, are really incredible. Like, I've said this before, and I'll take it to my grave, but I'm not a huge Stanley Kubrick fan by any means, but being able to watch The Shining in that hotel, I think would be otherworldly cool.
I don't think I could do it.
You think
The Shining is, I think I would. And I don't believe in anything, like in terms of like scary like ghosts or anything, but I still just psychologically I wouldn't be able to do it. It wouldn't happen. I couldn't do it. No.
Even with a bunch of people? Like you're just sitting in a theater?
I guess if there were a bunch of people.
That's what they do. They do screenings. They have like a film festival there, and then they play The Shining.
There?
Yeah. I can't remember what it's called. It's like the Stanley Hotel or something.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think
sounds
I
really
get too
fun.
fucking freaked out. The Shining is the scariest, like the most unnerving movie ever made.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I think. Yeah. I can barely watch it. Not.
John, did you know I have a bit of a temper?
Yeah, I've seen it come out once in a while.
Yeah, we had a big technical glitch. I'm getting pretty. I'm angry.
You're pissed.
I'm pretty fucking pissed. Anyway, we need to do this with a goddamn engineer or something.
Yeah, really.
All right, so go ahead.
Well, one aspect of the movie that I really appreciated was when, for years when you would read Vince Bugliosi's Helter Skelter, or when Karina Longworth would do her podcast, you would hear Tex Watson's words to Sharon Tate and everyone in the house. I'm the devil and I'm here to do the devil's business. And it's quite chilling and disturbing. I'm so happy that Tarantino took that same line and made it fucking ridiculous and pathetic, and every goddamn person in the theater laughed at Tex Watson, and I hope he fucking hears about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was so satisfying. To have that moment of catharsis where you're laughing at this fucking asshole instead of being chilled or scared by him, you know?
Totally.
And to that end, I think that since I moved here, and since it happened, the specter of the Tate LaBianca killings has hung over Los Angeles for as long as I've been here. Mm-hmm. It's always been here. It's always something that's on people's minds, especially people who lived here at the time, and then everyone who read Helter Skelter, which is everyone that lives here. And I feel like Tarantino, in some way, he can't erase what happened, but I think he has helped to exorcise some of those demons.
Well, yeah, he did such a great job, I thought, of taking those kids, basically, who I think everybody's terrified by, and rightly so for a lot of reasons.
Right.
And as you're saying, turn them into the big fucking joke where they're like idiot teenagers from any fucking era.
That's right.
Where they're just bravado and bullshit. And yeah, they happen to do something horrible. But yeah, you're right. It's so cathartic to, yeah, I'm the devil and I'm here to do some devil shit. He was like, no, it was stupider than that. Or yeah, his name or whatever. He's like,
right,
yeah,
right.
It was worse than that.
Yeah, and you know, it's good that Deborah Tate saw it and approves of it. And
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, she loved it. She thinks it's great.
Yeah.
So it's just something, in a way, I think he's provided a service to the town, which he has, you know, certainly
Obviously,
done before,
right.
With his great movie theater. Mm-hmm. And I have such great regard for him, and I think that for me, he definitely accomplished something positive with this movie.
Yeah. So I'll read, you know, I was kind of bringing up criticisms of it.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with all of them. My friend, who shall remain nameless, texted me essentially what his kind of issues with the film were, and I would love to hear your rebuttal. Mm-hmm. And I'm playing devil's advocate
right, yeah,
here.
sure.
Okay. Let me get it right. I found the film tedious. Aesthetically, it's nothing new, and I take issue with almost everything about the way Tarantino views the world, Hollywood, and other people. I wouldn't call it actively bad. I'd call it actively boring, and its message is bad. I think A.O. Scott is spot on when he calls Tarantino a conservative. There are other words I might use. I think he is fundamentally affectionate towards a world and ideology I think is fundamentally wrong. Then I said, you know, fuck you. You're a piece of shit. No, I didn't say. I would say. I started talking about how I love John Ford. And he's like, it's not your fault, but your affections are misplaced. And Quentin at least clearly doesn't see the objects of his affection for what they are. The film openly makes fun of Natalie Wood's murder and then makes her killer the hero who stops the dirty liberals from destroying the white misogynistic golden age of Hollywood. A golden age it sincerely wants you to be nostalgic about. This isn't satire, it's propaganda. There's a big difference between torching Hitler and torching an underage girl under the influence of a murderous cult leader. Tarantino doesn't see a difference. Then I said, I don't know if Robert Wagner murdered Natalie Wood, but that's a separate discussion. And then I said, I also think those Manson kids are completely responsible for Sharon Tate's death. And yeah, he's a bad guy, but so were they. And then he was just like, it really depends on what point you can take, like seeing someone's face smashed into a television pole, like a girl.
Well, that's always been his aesthetic. I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah. But same with Lynch, right? Like, that's a criticism Lynch gets all the time.
Sure.
He not only does he write like phenomenal female roles, but he also puts them in horrible situations.
Right. He puts them in, which is why I think Siskel and Ebert gave Blue Velvet a bad review, because they didn't like what he did to the actress Isabella Rossellini.
Sure.
And I mean, I would argue that, you know, she was a grown woman and she was fine with it.
Yeah, and it's entirely the point that you're not supposed to enjoy that.
Exactly, yes.
But he would say that he would argue that Tarantino's idea of enjoyment is harmful, and he is consciously trying to weaponize the language of cinema against people and ideas that he shouldn't be, because he wants to maintain a status quo that is favorable to him.
Well, I mean, I just think there's so much to unpack there. I think, like, for example, the Pitt character, Cliff, he may or may not have killed his wife. We don't know, but he's sort of keeping himself in a sort of purgatory, punishing himself, feeling guilty, living in kind of squalid conditions. Sure. Where he's manservant to Leonardo DiCaprio and never kind of allows himself to enjoy and have his own life.
Yeah.
I think that, like, the notion that Tarantino is advocating a conservative point of view, I think, is just crazy, because I think that Tarantino appreciates some aspects of the golden age of Hollywood and the studio systems, and he could see the positive things because, you know, he likes the movies that they produced and likes the actors that they produced and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's a sweet lament, and I think at the end he is saying this might be true, but time moves on and we have to move on. And I think that it's also kind of about the zeitgeist of what Tarantino himself is facing, that, you know, the kinds of movies he used to make, you know, with the N-word and everything else, are no longer in favor. And Tarantino has to make that adjustment kind of in the way that we see Rick Dalton does at the end, because Rick Dalton is this Western star who is very set in his ways, hates hippies, the whole nine yards.
He's essentially like Clint Eastwood or
right,
Burt Reynolds or pick your poison. One of these guys. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing with those TV Western guys is that half of them went on to never be heard of again.
Yeah.
They just became obscure and just died in obscurity, and half of them became the biggest stars of the 70s.
Totally.
I mean, Burt Reynolds and Clint Eastwood and any number of guys, who were the leads of these Westerns. And it's about that moment in Rick Dalton's life where he is making, he's trying to save himself from the fate of, dying out in obscurity, which I think Quentin Tarantino relates to. And he does it by listening to this girl who's a method actress, getting into character, agreeing to wear the long hair and, the hippie-ish manners. Right. And he has that great experience where he's acting for the first time. He's actually acting. Yeah. He's not just performing as a movie star.
And it's worth mentioning that the method thing was really the hippie. It was a hippie thing.
Right. It was a hippie thing. It was a liberal thing. It was a progressive thing.
Yeah.
So he's and who is the most progressive filmmaker, ironically, at that time is Roman Polanski.
Sure.
So at the end, we both save Sharon Tate and Jay Sebring and Abigail Folger and Wojtek Frykowski, but we're also, I think, setting up Rick Dalton to have a Clint Eastwood A-list career. Totally. I think he is going to get in with Polanski. I think he's going to make artistically satisfying films in the way Clint Eastwood did.
Yeah.
And I think that is what Tarantino was talking about. I don't think it's a conservative message. I think it's a progressive message.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I think that's a hell of a rebuttal.
Yeah.
To my friend who's not here to defend himself.
No. I think he hates me, that guy.
I don't have any idea.
No, I don't think he does. I mean, I only met him for 15 minutes.
No, I think, the reason I bring that up is because I felt like there were a lot of arguments on Twitter and stuff that felt sort of what he was saying, but I felt like he was well-spoken about it.
Right. No, he's definitely articulate and well-spoken. Yeah. But I'll tell you, I've been heartened to see the reaction of millennials and younger people that they are embracing and liking the movie. I thought they would hate it because of the Me Too stuff and just because they'd be bored. But apparently, they're finding things in it that they like.
I think we're finding in this time too with Chappelle's new special and stuff too that people are a little feeling a bit restricted by the sort of mandates of how we behave and the art we make.
Right. Well, it's the pendulum that swings back and forth ever, and it always will,
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think people are just really digging it. But I also don't think like my friend that there's anything in this movie that's truly insanely offensive or upsetting or anything like that to me personally. I don't know. I mean, I could maybe understand Bruce Lee's family being upset.
Right. Yeah.
But for the most part, I think it's great.
Yeah. Do you notice did you ever see Fight Club?
Of course.
Yeah, I think there's some Fight Club things going on there. At the end when they're both on the airplane together and Brad Pitt is wearing those kind of sunglasses that were the exact sunglasses he wore. And then at the end he's dressed exactly the way Tyler Durden is dressed. Yeah. So I think in the way that Tyler Durden was the other half of Edward Norton, his hidden, the real guy inside. I think they're also playing with that a little bit with Rick Dalton and Cliff.
I also really loved to see. I like any director who's very self-referential, and I love that Tarantino's finally gotten to a point where not only is he referencing other films, but now he's had such an insanely great career that he's referencing himself. So there's the Jackie Brown moment in the airport,
the mosaic tiles.
Yeah, there's some other stuff I can't remember right now.
Well, of course, the flamethrower.
The flamethrower's huge. Yeah, Inglorious. Yeah. But yeah, all in all, really great movie. Which I guess, but kind of, do you have more to say about it, or?
I mean, when we talk about Shampoo, it'll certainly come up.
That's what I mean. I was just about to say, I feel like this is a good moment to sort of segue to Hal Ashby's movie Shampoo, which we watched together, and maybe you can tell everybody why we went with Shampoo.
Well, while I was watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, one thing really struck me, which was there is a scene with J.C. Brigg talking to Michelle Phillips at the Playboy Mansion, an actress playing Michelle Phillips. And Tarantino wants us to know that's Michelle Phillips, so he actually puts her name, which he doesn't do for anyone else.
Right.
A couple days later, I watched Shampoo again, and sure enough, a character based on J.C. Brigg, who was played by Warren Beatty, is talking to the actual real-life Michelle Phillips, who is playing herself. And if you look at the two side by side, they're framed exactly the same.
Sure.
And in one, there's like a big ornate cabinet between them, and in the other, there's like a big ornate fountain between them. Like, it is clearly
a referencing.
Yeah. And I think he did take a lot of inspiration. Tarantino took a lot of inspiration from Hal Ashby, particularly in that party scene. Okay. I think that the Playboy scene is a lot like the scene in Shampoo, which actually, I mean, is a pretty deep scene. I think like it starts out as like this kind of decadent kind of sex party, and turns in like at the end, Warren Beatty is basically running through hell. You know.
So let's talk about what the plot of Shampoo is. So it takes place in November of 1968.
Right, election day.
Election day. So the whole movie takes place in a day.
Yep. It's Nixon versus Humphrey.
Okay, great.
And so Nixon wins.
And so it's
spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Nixon wins. It's not an alternate
Nixon
telling of history.
No, wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah. So but essentially the plot is Warren Beatty plays a J.C. Brigg type. He's a hairstylist on the beginnings of his journey as like a famous hairstylist,
right.
Potentially. He's got a lot of clients. He wants to open up his own business, and he's very good friends with a very Sharon Tate looking Goldie Hawn.
Right. A Sharon Tate like Goldie Hawn, who is constantly talking about hearing things outside and having dreams where people are trying to trap her.
And tie her up.
So, yeah, I don't think people realized it at the time, but the sawmill of the Manson family is definitely, I think, running in the background of Shampoo, although it is never explicitly stated. I think one of the reasons for that is that at the time, I think most people thought that the Warren Beatty character was actually based on John Peters, who had been Barbra Streisand's hairdresser.
I see.
And at that point had become, producer of her movies and other movies and became one of the most powerful people in Hollywood. But it actually, I don't think, is based on him. I think it is based on Jay.
I will say, just watching it now for the first time with that in mind,
right.
It's so clearly...
I really should have not told you beforehand and see if you picked it up.
I would have. Absolutely. Like, no question about it. I mean,
because she eventually gets with a guy who is the stand-in for Roman Polanski.
She lives up in the hills. She's dating a Polanski type.
Right.
Like, it's fucking really on the nose.
Yeah, it is on the nose.
But you were saying at the time nobody really knew. So
I don't think, if you look at the reviews from 1976, I don't think anyone brought up the Manson family. But that, I think, is a major thing when you're watching it now, especially if you watch it after you watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Well, and then so it's also written by Warren Beatty along with Robert Towne, who wrote Chinatown, which is directed by Roman Polanski. So I asked you middle of the movie, I was like, this is very strange, actually, to do a movie sort of vaguely about, this guy that his wife that Robert Towne had worked with, who got slaughtered by a bunch of fucked up teenagers.
But Robert Towne hated and
that's what
hated Roman Polanski,
and so that's very interesting to me.
And here's the reason why. The end of Chinatown, in Towne's original script, Jack Nicholson saves Evelyn Mulwray.
Okay.
The Faye Dunaway character.
Yeah.
And in the finished version, the version that Polanski wanted to do, she is murdered by her incestuous father,
who then takes
her daughter with him, and it's probably the darkest ending of any Hollywood movie I can think of.
It's insanely fucked up.
Because not only is she dead, but the horror of the molestation is continuing.
Gonna continue, yeah.
And forget it, Jake, it's Chinatown. That doesn't quite cut.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not happy with
I just
that.
saw Humanity, like, what it's really all about.
Right. And it's speculated, and it's probably true, that the reason that Polanski wanted that ending was because just a couple years before, his beautiful pregnant wife was murdered in such a horrible fashion.
He had a different worldview now.
And that's how he saw the world.
Yeah.
And Robert Towne thought that is not the movie that I signed on to write. He threatened to have his name taken off. He felt very strongly about it, and I don't think the two ever talked again.
Well, Robert Towne was wrong in that situation, because that's one of the greatest endings in all of cinema.
It's a very memorable ending.
Yeah. I just think a happy ending to that. Everything that we saw precedent to that is not great.
The evil and corruption just in every aspect of society.
And it's LA, and it never went away. You know, it's bad.
It's fitting.
I definitely side a little bit more with Polanski here, which is not a sentence that I thought I'd ever say out loud.
Right.
Except when we're talking about his movies.
But I don't think it's like Towne was out to get him, because in Shampoo, the Polanski character is actually pretty,
Sure.
He's
banal.
He's banal. He's not that interesting.
He's really not. Now, you know who my favorite part of this whole film is Jack Warden. Is that his name?
Jack Warden's an excellent character.
Absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
So funny. Just really fantastic. Now, what did you think about the movie? Do you really like it?
I love it. I think it's brilliant in its way. I think it's a small, brilliant movie. I don't think it's like a big, huge, like big scale brilliant, but I think it's like a small, perfect little gem.
So Hal Ashby did this right after Harold and Maude.
Harold and Maude, yeah.
I will say it had me like 85%, and then the ending I just felt like really didn't.
I think the ending's great because, well, I think the point of having the Manson thing in there is that time is running out for the Warren Beatty character.
Yeah.
And that's driven home by the fact that the owner of the hair salon's son was killed in an accident, and then you see Warren Beatty driving his motorcycle crazy, like in the very next scene he could easily have been killed in the same way.
Right.
And I think what all that was driving home was that Warren Beatty is not going to live forever, no matter how many girls he fucks. Mm-hmm. And he realizes too late that he wants to be with the Julie Christie character.
But that's essentially my issue with it. Is, he's got all these different women, and it feels, and potentially this is on purpose, but I wish then maybe they had made that a little clearer. But he sort of arbitrarily sort of lands on one, I felt. Like he was just like, oh, I like this girl.
No, I think for me, through the whole movie, it was clear that she was the one. I never got the feeling that his relationship with the Goldie Hawn character was all that deep, or obviously with the
wife of the guy.
Faye, her name is escaping right, but the wife of Jack Warden.
So who plays her?
Faye.
I thought that was the girl who won the Oscar.
Yeah, she did.
She's the most curious, like, who. And look, I'm not saying we should take her Oscar away or anything. I'm not like that type of guy.
Yeah.
It's a little very like. I thought it was a very.
I think Beatrice Straight winning an Oscar work is more egregious.
Oh, she's so good in Network.
But she's in it for like 3 minutes.
Yeah, but it's literally that scene. It's like with Anthony Hopkins was Hannibal Lecter for like all of 14 minutes in that movie. Did you know that?
I didn't. Well, I mean, I've heard that, but I didn't know after. I would have said he's in it a lot.
They sprinkle him throughout, though.
Yeah.
You have one great 1 minute scene 14 times over an hour and a half. It's pretty good.
So you don't like Shampoo?
No, I do like Shampoo.
Yeah.
I was just saying that, like, I was enjoying it, and then it feels like it's building up to this big emotional ending that just didn't catch me.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think for me, because I've seen it a few times too, I think I just understand that it's the Julie Christie, and Christie was his girlfriend at the time.
Okay.
So maybe he was trying to convince himself to
stop
give up the wife.
Her. Yeah.
Right. And it's too late for him, and just like it was too late for JC. I mean, he's gonna die one day, and we, if we're paying attention, know that day is coming pretty fucking soon. He doesn't even have a year left.
Sure, right.
So I think the ending is pretty powerful and sad.
Yeah, so I mean, Beatty's great in it. Everybody's great in it. Goldie Hawn's super funny in it.
you were saying, who could play that part other than Warren Beatty? Because we know
well, I was saying,
that it's the case that he...
So I was saying that, like, yeah, like, I don't think today you could write a movie, even if you did it with, who's like Tony Kushner, whoever you want to, say like one of the best working screenwriters working, like starring you playing a version of yourself where every girl is into you and you have sex with everybody.
Right.
And that's honestly the first 2 acts.
Right. That's right.
Then act 3, he changes his mind and it's like, oh, I'm really into this girl. Or as you're saying, that's throughout. You can kind of sense it. I couldn't. I was like, it could be any of these.
If you ever happen to see it again one day, I think you'll see where they have kind of chemistry, and you could see that.
Sure, yeah.
It's more meant to be than it
Either
is.
way, let's say Justin Theroux sat down with Tony Kushner and wrote a movie where Justin Theroux plays. Who's a heartthrob? We don't really even have
Brad Pitt.
Sure, Pitt. Yeah. Let's say Brad Pitt does a movie where he plays like a version of himself. And then everybody wants to fuck him.
It would be ridiculous.
Well, and that's funny too. Like they made it funny.
Right.
But and then he gets his comeuppance at the end, but it's
But and if you read Peter Biscuit, that's right. Then biography of Warren Beatty, star. I mean that's actually toned down as to what Warren Beatty was actually like. He would have sex literally with every woman he met, and even women that you wouldn't like. He would find attractiveness in the woman at the car rental agency. Literally, he would start flirting with them and invite them home.
Right.
Like it, not to denigrate car rental agency women, but didn't only go after like powerful actresses. He went after
everybody
every day. And I've heard even guys. I mean, I don't know, but like I think he's a really fascinating figure, certainly in Hollywood history, and that is an excellent one. And he's it also describes like his filmmaking process, which was just insane, and it's amazing that he ever got anything done because he was so particular. And I think maybe it was even a thing where he was just afraid to put anything out there because he was so insecure. So that was the reason for all the delays and stuff, and why he never really got all that much done, like 2 movies a decade or something like that.
Right.
But I think he was a very interesting actor and probably a better producer. I mean, I don't know, but like I think he's a really fascinating figure, certainly in Hollywood history, and that book is an excellent one. And he's
him and Faye Dunaway give the Oscar to the wrong people.
Oh, that I saw.
Yeah.
Anything done because he was so particular, and I think maybe it was even a thing where he was just afraid to put anything out there because he was so insecure. So that was the reason for all the delays and stuff, and why he never really got all that much done, like 2 movies a decade or something like that.
Right.
But I think he was a very interesting actor and probably a better producer than an actor. But
absolutely insane, and he's still around.
Yeah,
and the Oscar goes to Moonlight.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
You didn't see it?
No. Is it good?
You mean the movie Moonlight, or you didn't see him and Faye Dunaway give the Oscar to the wrong people?
Oh, that I saw.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd hope. That was like as good as television gets.
Poor Faye.
Poor the fucking cast and crew of Moonlight.
Yeah. Yeah, that was... I mean, I had to turn... I was watching on the computer on my laptop. I think I just flipped it closed when I realized it was going on. I just couldn't watch what was happening.
Cringe too much? Yeah, that's great. Yeah, all in all, no, I do like Shampoo, and I would say it's probably worth watching, especially this year under the, it makes a great double feature with Once Upon a Time. Because not only is it kind of, for a good chunk of it, like a fun slice of life LA in the 60s movie, with a hell of a soundtrack. I mean, hell, he got the rights to some Beatles songs, Pet
Jimi
Sounds,
Hendrix, who's not in any movie ever except this one.
That's it? That's the only Hendrix?
So,
That's insane. Yeah, all in all, like I would say, definitely worth a watch.
You can almost look at it as a prequel because
totally.
He winds up because Steve McQueen makes that whole speech about let me tell you about this guy. Yeah. They were dating and then they broke up and then she got with Roman, but he's in love with her, won't leave her side.
Yeah, right.
So you could see the events of Shampoo possibly leading into that.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's cool. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, buddy. What do you think?
I think that's it. I mean, I've said all I have to say about these two movies for the time being, but I mean, if you haven't seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood yet, I would get thee to a theater and see it, and do see it in theater. Don't wait.
Do see it in a theater.
And 35 millimeter or 70 millimeter if you can.
Totally. I'm actually surprised he's not playing Shampoo at his theater. Seems like the perfect thing to put up.
He has. I bet he will. I think currently it's just his Once Upon a Time playing there. Yeah, I think eventually they would probably put it on a double feature.
They're selling these shirts there that look so cool. It's like Spawn Ranch Crew, and I want one so bad, and they keep selling out like within an hour.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they look great. All right, well, thanks everybody for bearing with us.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.
We had a hiatus, I would hope we do one again soon, but
we'll
we just keep saying that, so let's just we'll just do it or we won't. We'll see. Yeah.
When we see a movie that
we feel is worth talking about, then we'll
which means next year or the year after.
Yeah, once in a while a good movie comes around, and then we'll pick another movie that kind of goes with it. All right.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for coming over, John. And I hope you, end up in charge of the Universal Archive or something.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
And I hope you wind up, head writer on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
I hope we both don't get murdered.
Right, or hit by a car.
All right, bye.
Bye.
This is something we all